Hello peeps, welcome back to the Big Deck Player. I am Matt Sparks, and today we are taking a look at another deck that I've been playing a lot recently. So this one's called Fast Mage. Now I haven't played a Mage deck for a while, so I figured it was about time that we had a look at one. Now I found this as usual on Hearthstone.com, and if you've completed all of Nax, this is a really cheap deck. And really effective too. So it's kind of like a zoo deck, but with a mage instead of a warlock. So you have spells, a lot of spells for removal, and lots of low-cost minions, but minions that can be buffed and synergize well with each other. So let's just take a quick look from the start. Okay, so we have 2 lots of arcane missiles, which is fairly great for early removal. It's a little bit random, unfortunately, but can usually work out in your favour. 2 mirror image to protect the minions you have, but also this combos very well with some of the other creatures that you have as well. 2 leper gnomes. Again, as I said, this is all about low cost creatures that synergize. So we've got 2 leper gnomes. I mean, most of the synergy you'll find come with the mana worms, which you have 2 of, which obviously mirror image combos very well with, as does arcane missiles. But also the undertakers, so you have 2 of these as well. So every time you summon a minion with death rattle, it buffs it up by 1 attack and 1 health. So the leper gnome is a great combo with the undertaker. If you've got a coin, if you're going second, undertaker leper gnome is a fantastic way to start your game, because then you're going to start doing a lot of damage very quickly. Also we have 2 knife jugglers, which again can combo very well with our low cost minions and the mirror image that we've seen already, because obviously that summons 2 minions, and that means the knife juggler deals out 2 damage from its little special ability. We have 2 frostbolts for dealing damage and freezing things in place. Very useful against warriors and paladins that have weapons, or even rogues for that matter, to stop them from being able to do damage and taking out your minions. Very useful for that, as well as removal of taunts and such. As I touched on, we have 2 knife jugglers. We also have 2 loot hoarders, death rattle to buff the undertaker, and we get a draw card when they die. So that's useful too, because there's not a huge amount of card draw in this deck, and we need to kind of get as many cards as we can fairly quickly so that we can do as much damage as we can. Now there are a few secrets in this deck. We have a counter spell, a duplicate, and a mirror entity. So just the 3 of them, and there's only 1 of each. But what we want to do is keep them in our deck and not in our hand, because we have 2 mad scientists, which again have death rattle, so they'll buff the undertaker. But we want to keep them. We want to try and mulligan for those and get them out as early as we can, because once you've used the 3 spells, the 3 secret spells, the mad scientist is pretty useless. He's just a 2/2 for 2. Yes, he's still got the death rattle, which will buff the undertaker, but once that death rattle goes off, nothing will happen. So you ideally want to keep your secrets in your deck and not in your hand, and try and get the mad scientists out instead. Doesn't always work, but if you can make it work, then it can usually pay off. It's a little bit random as to which secret you get, and sometimes you'll get one that you would rather not have got. You might want to counter spell before your paladin opponent does a consecration or something, but you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's the best way of using this minion. So there we go. We have 2 sorcerer's apprentice to reduce the spell's cost, which is really good, especially if you've got mirror image and arcane missiles in your hand, because they become 0 cost, so you can play them whenever you like. And obviously it reduces the cost of arcane intellect, so that helps you draw cards without using too much mana, because 3 cost for 2 cards, maybe not too great, but 2 cost for 2 cards is awesome. So probably best to try and use your arcane intellect when you have a sorcerer's apprentice up. Okay, so we have the 3 secrets which I touched on already. The new one from Naxxramas is the duplicate, which when a friendly minion dies, put 2 copies of it into your hand. Now, what you need to remember, and a lot of people forget, is secrets do not trigger on your turn. They only trigger on your opponent's turn. So, putting out a duplicate and then trading, say, your knife juggler into a taunt that kills your knife juggler is not going to get you two duplicates, two knife jugglers from your duplicate spell. It's not going to happen because it's your turn. A lot of people forget that, and so they make bad plays as a result. So you need to make sure that if you want to duplicate a certain minion, then have duplicate up and then have that minion out, and just hope that your enemy will kill it off or trade or something for it. Sometimes it can work and you can bait them to take out the certain thing that you want, but sometimes it doesn't work, so you need to be very careful. Also, if you put duplicate out and you put mirror image out, just bear in mind that you're then going to end up with more 0-2 taunts, and that might not necessarily be what you want. So try and keep the duplicate ready for knife jugglers, sorcerer's apprentice, or some of the bigger creatures that we're going to look at next. Alright, so we've got a mirror entity, which is fairly standard. Puts a minion that your opponent plays and puts it on your side of the board as well, which, if that is played when there's a knife juggler up, that can be pretty useful, because obviously if they put down something that's only got 1 health, there's a chance that the knife juggler will kill it, which is pretty cool. And if they play anything that has death rattle, it'll buff your Undertaker if that's out, so that can be pretty useful. 2 fireballs for a bit of removal or damage to the face, fairly standard for most mage decks. And then we have the 3 big guys. We have Lotheb to make your enemy's spells cost 5 more for that turn. Useful for protecting your minions against stuff like Flame Strike or Consecration, or any kind of AoE removal, really. It can pretty much keep them safe for a turn as a result, because most of these have quite low health, so they're going to be prone to stuff like Consecration and Fan of Knives and stuff like that. And then we have the Fugan and Stalag combo. Now, if you can get really lucky and get a duplicate on one of these guys, then you could end up with multiple Thaddeus cards being put onto your board as a result. I haven't managed to make it work, but it is a possibility. That play is available to you if you have the right situation. All right, so that's the deck listing. It's pretty good. I quite like it. It's a very aggressive deck. So let's see how it does in action.
Jaina versus Rexar.
Let the hunt begin.
You asked for it.
Okay, so what we got here? We have a mirror entity, which we don't want. As I mentioned earlier, you want to keep them in your deck, but not in your hand. And we'll ditch the fireball for the moment as well, because we kind of want to pull into some slightly lower cost creatures. Ideally, we want to get an Undertaker, because we're going second. We want to get an Undertaker so we can combo it with the Leponome. Doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. Or failing that, maybe a Knife Juggler. Oh, excellent. We get a Knife Juggler. Well, we can turn 2 Knife Juggler. Or turn 1 Knife Juggler, even. And then we can start putting out the rest of these things that we have here. Mana Worm and Arcane Missiles as a possible turn 2. To buff the Mana Worm. Okay, well, that's coin and put Knife Juggler out. Let's hope he doesn't have a way to kill that off this turn. Let's hope, as a hunter, he doesn't play too many explosive traps, because that could cause a lot of problems for me, if that's the case.
I wonder.
Well, it's not very difficult. You've only got 4 cards, so... Okay. And... now what? Okay, just a steady shot. Okay, that's fine. I can deal with that. Alright, let's see what we get. So we've got two possibilities here. We can Undertaker and Leper Gnome, or we can Mana Worm and Arcane Missiles. I'd rather keep Arcane Missiles for when something is on the board, to try and remove it. So in this, and obviously as a result of having placing 2 minions, we'll get 2 daggers from the Knife Juggler. So attack with the Knife Juggler, and then I'll Undertaker. Make sure you do this in the right order. If you're playing this, you don't want to put the Leper Gnome out and then the Undertaker, because that would be really silly. And then we'll Leper Gnome as well. That buffs, and then that throws a dagger. So it's a fairly strong start. Would be nice to get maybe a Loot Hoarder. Draw into a Loot Hoarder, that would be nice. Uh-oh. Eagle Horn Bow. What's he going to do? Okay. In that case, we really do need to kind of buff this guy, but I don't think that's going to happen. Which is unfortunate. See, now if the Knife Juggler was still out, I think I'd probably put Sorcerer's Apprentice and the Mana Worm out. But we don't have him, so I'm not going to put both of them. I will put the Mana Worm out in the hope that maybe he decides to hit that instead of the Undertaker. I doubt he will, but you never know. We'll just go for the face. Because if I Sorcerer's Apprentice next turn, I can then get a free Arcane Missiles to buff this fella. And my Fireball will also be reduced. Not that I'll be able to play it then next turn if I play the Sorcerer's Apprentice, but it will still be reduced. So if he's got an Explosive Trap, he might play it. Although it wouldn't kill off either of these two. Well, obviously he doesn't have what he wants, and he probably should have kept that for when I play my secrets. Pulling into a Mad Scientist would be pretty awesome right now. Oh, okay. That was potentially dumb. Okay, let's see. What should we do here? Should we just fireball it? I think that's the most safest and reliable way of doing it. I mean, I could Sorcerer's Apprentice, Arcane Missiles. How much would that... well, I don't know, that might work. I might end up having to trade something into it, though, if it doesn't... if the Arcane Missiles don't. It's a little bit too random for my liking. I think I'm just going to fireball it. Still buff this. He's down to 11 health, and I've got 2 bananas, so... if... He might play a trap. He might not. I don't know. What's he going to do? Unleash the Hounds. Okay. Draws his cards. See, Arcane Missiles is now a good kind of idea. He's down to 9 health now, though, so... Oh, well, there we go. Well, we didn't even get to see the secrets in play. This deck has been so good to me. I've played games, and I'll rank up with the deck, and then I'll just start losing with it, and I'll lose like 3 or 4 matches, and I get really frustrated. So then I'll switch to this deck, and then all of a sudden start winning again, almost all the time. This is a really strong deck, and I'm not going to say that it's easy to play, but it's certainly a lot easier than some of the other Mage decks that I've played in the past. You know, it's fairly straightforward as to how it works. There's lots of little gimmicks, and as I say, especially with the duplicate spell, if you can get that to trigger on certain things. There's been times where I've seen it trigger with Knife Jugglers, and then you end up with like 2 Knife Jugglers out. Because you've got so many low-cost creatures, you start putting low-cost creatures out and maybe a mirror image, and these Knife Jugglers are just going to town, just doing loads of damage, and your opponent doesn't really know if your opponent doesn't have like an answer to it in his hand, quite often they'll just concede because they have no way of being able to deal with it, and it's really, really good. So check this out. There'll be a link in the description. Follow that to Hearthstone, and you can see the deck listing and all the variations that have been put through in the past. It keeps it updated, so that's pretty cool. And if you make any videos or you play this deck, let me know how you get on. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.